Rich, I feel like we missed an opportunity here to do like our version of the Hot Ones show.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like we could have
eating.
just had like I thought about it, like ordering some tenders and just kind of in between each one,
Yeah.
just getting sweatier and sweatier. Welcome to Restaurant 365 Presents Behind the Numbers, a show where we talk to restaurant owners, operators, chefs and CFOs, and everyone in between about what makes a successful restaurant tick. Before we get started, just a quick reminder to like and subscribe to the show wherever you're tuning in, and please consider leaving a review. Those help us bring you all of our amazing guests and conversations, as well as continue to grow and support this incredible restaurant community of ours. And with that, I'm your host, Rich Sweeney.
And I'm Mark Cohen, and we are very excited to be here today with Scott Putman and James McGehee of Dave's Hot Chicken. James is the CFO of Dave's and a 30-year industry executive specializing in system implementations for growth companies, financial analysis, debt restructuring, and implementation of business intelligence systems to improve reporting and, of course, profitability. As CFO, he provides financial advisory and systems implementation services for high-growth, private equity-funded restaurant groups.
And Scott Putman is the Senior Vice President of Finance at Dave's, and he has an extensive career in finance and accounting roles in the hospitality industry. He's held leadership positions at Wetzel's Pretzels and Mendocino Farm Sandwich Market, in addition to several accounting and finance roles at restaurant companies around Southern California. Guys, welcome to the show. Let's dig in.
Good to be here.
Some heavy hitters today. Yes.
Gosh, man.
So we always like to start with sort of a big fundamental question, like what's on your minds? What do you think is the most important thing that sort of your store leader should be focused on? Operations, finance, within the four walls. What's driving Dave's success these days?
Oh my gosh! You know what? Listen,
I'm coming out swinging.
Coming out swinging, Mark. Look, at the end of the day, it comes down to really the three main metrics, right? And all of us know it, right? It's sales and prime cost, right? Sales, COGS, labor, right? And if you're managing those three effectively, then it's typically dropping to the bottom line. You have to start with a brand that's got, a decent AUV. You can't make that out of nothing. And luckily at Dave's, we're in good shape in that category. And I can honestly say with the help of our 365, specifically on the COGS side, we've been able to really translate solid AUVs into just amazing returns on invested capital for our franchisees.
And amazing growth, right? How many locations are we at now?
Oh, gosh. We're at about 355 locations. We started the year at 260. And we'll finish the year just about 400.
Wow. I feel like there's one opening right now.
I think another one just opened right now.
We have 4 opening this week. So,
wow.
To put it in perspective.
Wild. So, Scott, that's keeping you busy, I'm sure.
Absolutely. It's fun times.
And so if we're talking numbers here, how many chickens are we going through a year now with that many locations?
Oh God, it's kind of sad, but it's great at the same time. About 25 million pounds of chickens, which is about 50 million chickens.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And then to counterpart that, what about potatoes? What about French fries? What are we going through in pounds of?
Oh gosh,
of
30 million pounds of spuds.
Wow.
Yeah, 30 million pounds of spuds.
That's wild.
Just a couple taters.
Yeah. Well, and actually, I want to talk about these chickens because you were pretty passionate about telling these are very special chickens that we're using at Dave's. It's not just any ordinary chicken.
they are. The reason you're able to get a quarter-pound tender is just because of the fact that you're using what's called extra large birds. They're 8 to 11-pound chickens versus some of the other competition that uses the medium-sized birds. And we're very passionate about it. Not only are they extra large birds, they're also halal. And It wasn't done for any sort of religious purposes. It was done because the meat and the mouthfeel was much more tender. So we're very proud of our product that we put on the plate.
And I sort of feel like chicken and coffee are having a moment right now. I feel like the timing for you guys has been sort of perfect. Right? What do you think's driving that? It's what makes chicken such a hot commodity right now?
That's kind of what you think. I'm curious.
I think chicken has always been a favorite protein among people. It's got value to it. It's hearty. But right now, what I think layers on top of that is spice. I think spice is on trend right now, and I think we got on that wave early enough and our chicken, takes it to another level with that flavor profile. And so you go to the market now, you look in the hot sauce aisles, they're full. And every brand is coming out with some spicy iteration of something on their menu, and that's all we specialize in. Although you can get mild and you can get no spice. Spice is where our mojo lives.
And what's the Reaper's the highest? Is that the farthest we go with the spice level?
Reaper's the high. You go from no spice all the way to Reaper.
Reaper.
Yep.
Rich, I feel like we missed an opportunity here to do like our version of the Hot Ones show.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like we could have just had like little I thought about it, like ordering some tenders and just kind of in between each one, getting sweatier and sweatier as I eat more and more chicken tenders.
Yeah, the ops team did that to James and I one time.
They did.
Try the Reaper recipe, guys. What do you guys think? And we took a bite, and about 5 minutes later, we were in a walk-in drinking milkshakes. And I haven't tried it since, to be honest. So not for us, but thank you for offering, Rich.
Okay.
That is like the product testing that you don't want to be a part of. Like we've got 12 different kinds of Reaper and I need you to try all 12 multiple times. No, thank you. That hurts just thinking about it.
So, and I think one of the other reasons that you alluded to, James, when we were talking, the chicken's got a relatively quick turnaround compared to the cow, right? So
you know what? I always tell people, if you want to be in any type of protein, chicken's where it's at. Okay. And we talk about growth cycles. A cow takes, a year to 13 months. A pig takes 3 to 4 months, and a chicken takes 7 to 8 weeks. And don't try and catch fish. Right. That's impossible. So, if you're going to do proteins, which every single successful restaurant chain out there is, I hate to say it, protein based.
Protein is hot.
It's where it's at for sure.
And so I want to back up a little bit. How do 4 guys in a parking lot get to 400 restaurants by the end of this year? What is it because you doubled down on the tech stack day one? Like what accelerates that growth so quickly?
It was all R365.
We did not pay him to stay.
No,
that's it.
No,
end the episode. We're done.
Drop
Mic
episode.
No, look, you guys have definitely allowed us to scale with a very lean team on the franchisor side. I'll let Scott get into that. But I will say what the founders did very well at the beginning is they created an absolute craveable product. But more, just as important, they actually realized their limitations, and partnering with, Bill Phelps and team was honestly the catalyst to their growth. The social capital associated with quality franchisees is something that cannot be understated. And what we were able to do is pull in a team across multiple platforms. We talked about Wetzel's Pretzels. Blaze Pizza was a big feeder of our support center. And, I'm very proud to say that, of the 60 plus people we have at our support center, 90% of them were hand selected. And I really, truly believe that was a massive accelerator for us in this process, along with the social capital of the franchisees, along with the financial model that the franchisees were very excited to participate in.
Scott, how did you get pulled into this elite group, this amazing team that sort of helped this growth happen?
Yeah, great question. I've known James since 2014, where we shared a few stints in the same companies together. I did work for Wetzel's Pretzels. Bill Phelps, our CEO, is the founder of Wetzel's Pretzels.
Okay.
And in 2021, he said, "Hey, we got 7 stores and looking to grow. Are you interested in joining this team?" And I kind of looked at the concept, looked at what was going on at Dave's Hot Chicken. I said, yeah, that's somewhere I would like to explore, not knowing where the business would take us and how hot the segment would be. So I got a call from James and Bill, said, let's work something out, and jumped over here with, I think it was 7 stores. And in those early days, we would say, hey, if we can get to 50 stores, we're going to be heroes. Look at today, we look back at that moment and all the work that the entire team has brought to the table here. It's an amazing result and amazing success story on everyone's part.
It's incredible.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's one of those things I talk about with clients all the time when they're setting up their databases. It's like, even if you don't think you're going to get to 50 stores, plan like you are, because I feel like the decisions you made at 7 stores allowed, how much has changed since then, and to get to 400. Like you instilled those SOPs, those decisions that got made at store 7 have taken you to store 400. And it's really, I always say it's so important to sort of future-proof your brand, future-proof your databases when you're setting these pieces up.
So let me ask Scott a question here, since I like putting him on the spot. I mean, how many legal entities do we have within our master database right now?
Right now, there's probably 70 different legal entities within the master database right now for our franchise groups. And so when we started originally, when I came on with store 7, we had maybe 4 or 5 legal entities within that platform. And at that time, I came in and maybe R365 with James started with store 1, I believe, was probably more robust than we needed at that time. At store 7, it made sense without a doubt. Actually, maybe even earlier than that, it made sense. And then as we've scaled and as we've leveraged, not only the AVT modules, but all the modules within R365, my main module is the franchise module, which I use obviously on a weekly basis. And that made my life going from 7 stores to 350 stores. There's no difference between the two at this point with that module. It makes my life that much easier to process. From start to finish, I could get done with royalties on a Monday morning for the prior week in about 15 minutes with confidence. Historically, in prior roles, could be a half a day to a day of validation and processing to really figure that out. So it's been a huge time saver. The confidence level is huge. Integrations to our banking institutions are critical. And it's made a great data warehouse for us to house our banking information, franchisee legal information within that module as well. So it's been highly efficient for us to scale on that end.
800 is a piece of cake. Let's go.
Easy. Not going to change it. Easy.
I was kind of curious too. I mean, one of the things you guys had mentioned before is just with the franchise model being so attractive for franchisees. I guess if you wouldn't mind kind of elaborate on that a little bit more. I mean, kind of the secret sauce that you guys see as being a successful franchise group. What do you all attribute that to?
Gosh, I think at the end of the day, it's, do you have a sustainable brand in a category that's expanding with a financial model that is extraordinary? So, and I'll share this with some of the group, with the team here. It's just, we have a model right now that's got an AUV of about $3 million that currently pays back in 2 years. Wow. And so post royalty, post ad fund. By the way, that's why I'm a franchisee as well. I'm the CFO, but I'm also a franchisee. Scott's one of my investors. My partner is the president of the company, right? And is it self-serving? Absolutely. But is it also show the other franchisees that we're willing to invest our own capital, our own personal guarantees into the brand that we believe in? 100%. So, when I talk to franchisees, I say, hey, you could make 5% in the money market, or you could make 50% in a Dave's. And right now it's, that's the reason why we're going to grow, double the footprint from 260 to north of 520 in 2 years. Okay. It's not because they love Dave's. Sure, they love Dave's, but if they love Dave's and they didn't have a financial return, what's the point? So, yeah,
I would add, from day one, we've been a franchise-focused, operations-centric organization. If we think and act on behalf of the best interests of the franchisees, we know that those decisions will ultimately benefit them, ultimately leading to hypergrowth or accelerated growth. And that's worked in our favor. And we continue to have that mindset even today, post-transaction. We continue to have that mindset of their best interest in mind. That allows us to make smart decisions. And that's not just for James and our president, that's for the entire system. It allows us to think on their behalf.
Right. You're arming them with the tools and the support they need. I think the way you guys talked about this ROIC on roids, right? Like you guys are giving them the tools they need for this 2-year ROI return. And I think a big part of that was the AVT, which I think you talked about, Scott, right? How is that being leveraged to sort of help with that throughput?
Absolutely, yeah. We share their usage numbers with them on a monthly basis that we absorb in, obviously through the separate systems, and we've set the culture of the business to understand what AVT means and what efficiencies and usage should be. Okay. From what our baseline are of our corporate stores and how we see the system perform. That has allowed us to share our key items across the system through our monthly reports, also through our kind of quarterly newsletters. And so when they see that, how they're performing against the system, and they adapt their organizations to that. And it's worked out really, really effectively for them. And we've also been able to build in tools to show them what their lost opportunities are when they're not hitting those benchmarks that we see fit for the brand, regardless of location, menu price, anything else that could play effect into that. And so it takes time to get that culture implemented. Once it is in place, they're used to it, and that's what they expect on the go forward. We're big believers in KPIs, and we know that productivity measures will lead to financial results in that order. If you look at financial results first, you risk missing, the mark. So we're both believing in productivity. Productivity leads to financial results.
It's about the journey, not the destination, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love the idea that the AVT is helping you outperform the banks. That is
absolutely.
That is pretty awesome.
And you had mentioned kind of, one of the things that came up as far as like location, like menu pricing, things like that. I mean, what does that look like for somebody who's like wanting to get into franchising? I mean, how is it? Is it like kind of they getting like an area? Do they get to pick their own locations? Are you guys involved in that process? I mean, what are some of the things, obviously the growth you've had, you've been crazy successful, that you still keep, kind of a hand in to help new franchisees or growing franchises?
Well, once you get the brand solidified and you've got a brand that's worthy of growing, because many people say, I want to build a franchisable concept, but don't start with that exact same thing, which is it a franchisable concept that can pay back in 3 years or less, right? That's where it starts. That's the minimum threshold. Then it comes down to the selecting the right franchisees. Okay. And we've been spoiled. We have the who's of franchisees. We have people that are part of the Dunkin', the Jersey Mikes, the Carl's Juniors, Little Caesars. I can go on and on and on as to the quality of our franchisees, and nothing can be said outside of, if you don't have the quality franchisees with existing infrastructures in place, you are going to miss the mark as a franchisor. Every single region that we have sold via our area development agreements, range from 5 to 25 units. I will say that, every single location is reviewed by our real estate team. They physically go to each individual site to look at it, and they put it on a matrix of, key indicators of success. They present it to the real estate committee. Every single week, we're reviewing and approving sites that our team has physically visited. Then from there, it goes to our construction team. Our construction team is walking them through the process. Okay. And if you can get me as a franchisee to actually build a restaurant correctly, that means your processes are tight, because trust me, I'm not a very good person on development side. So, but then from there, what I think is equally, if not the most important piece, is the handoff to operations of our new restaurant opening teams. We have 6 NRO teams that go throughout the world opening up these restaurants. Okay. And they stay there anywhere from 10 days to 2 weeks. And literally it's indoctrinating the new restaurant team members into the culture of Dave's. And I will say that has been part of our superpower that cannot be understated. Dylan Viddix has done an extraordinary job of organizing these teams and deploying these teams throughout the world. And it's a secret weapon. So,
and that brings up an interesting, we talk about the culture, but they're also, I won't mention any other chicken groups, but you go into their restaurants and they're all very much the same, right? Very generic inside the 4 walls. You guys have really doubled down on design, right? And I know when we were looking at that matrix, you've got different levels of design that align with your spice meat, right? You've got a Reaper design, you've got a mild design. And depending on, the street corner, that's going to dictate what level of culture we bring in sort of to that store. And the other thing you're not really doubling down on really are drive-throughs, because you guys are all about the experience within the culture of Dave's, right? Within the 4 walls. And I think that really differentiates you as a group, for sure.
Scott, you want to touch on that?
Yeah, absolutely. The design level. So, the founders in store one, when it opened up in East Hollywood, it was like they wanted a funky, energetic vibe of kind of street versus culture. And they got together some friends of theirs by the name of Splatterhouse. These guys started with store one. They're local guys, and they've gone into every single location, or I've trained artists to go into every single location and apply unique flair depending on region and location within those stores. Okay. So every store is absolutely unique, and we have scaled our design levels from, mild to Reaper levels, where you can go from kind of basic on the inside, on the outside, to extremely covered, in paint all over the place. And we found that, as you go up in that design level, both from the external and internal standpoint, that we have seen lifts in sales volumes because of that. It's not, equal across the board, but for the most part, if you see a Reaper design level on a street corner, it draws in the people more than a blank facade. Now, there's, local registrations and landlord requirements that either allow you or don't allow you to actually access those levels. But when we can put those in play, we absolutely put those in play. Does it add a little bit of a cost to the overall model? Slightly. Is there a return on it? Absolutely. So definitely a really big driver for us. And again, it makes us unique and makes us fun when we go to those stores.
And it adds a little bit of personality, right? And with every location being its own, it becomes that kind of fun game for the fans of Dave's to be like, well, I want to go check out all of the Reaper stores because they are so different, but they're all still falling underneath that, kind of similar vein, but each one being unique and wanting to go. That's something I would do. Show up just to take a selfie somewhere and eat a whole lot of chicken. I'm down for that road trip.
Absolutely.
Instagram ready, all stores.
Yep,
Let's go.
Yep.
And I have to say, having been in quite a few Daves, it's something that's happened that blew my mind for a fast casual, quick service concept. I got table touched in multiple restaurants. Like somebody stopped by the table and talked to me and said, "Hey, you got to put honey on this." I remember that specifically. They were like, have you tried honey on this tender? And I was like, no. And he went and got honey and he brought it over and I was like, that just doesn't happen in this space. So that really speaks a lot.
It goes back to operations and how well they're doing on the brand standards, touching the guests, making sure every guest is happy and they come in there and have a fantastic experience. I've had the same experience, Mark, when they don't even know that I work for the company. I've gone into random Daves and they just come, "Hey, can I get you anything? How's everything going?" I'm like, "This is awesome." It's working without a doubt. And, it's part of the brand. It's part of the culture. And even the training programs that the teams put in place are so fun and so different from what other companies have done to get the employees engaged at a higher level. And it flows through. And thank you for sharing that with us. That's great to hear.
Yeah. And if you haven't put honey on one of those tenders, do it.
Yep. All right. I know what I'm having for lunch after this.
I'll tell you guys, one of the quantitative measures, obviously of customer sentiment is star reviews, right? And if you look at the combination of our customer sentiment between Google and Yelp, I will say what we're probably most proud of on the operations side is we went from 3.8 stars approximately 3.5 years ago to 4.7 stars. And we grew at this extraordinary rate. And it just shows you how well run the restaurants are from our franchisees and how solid the systems are from our ops team.
And I'll add, James, in the last few weeks, we've been at a 4.8, but we're not memorializing that yet. But yeah, we've been pretty rock solid.
Not yet.
So that's it. Can you trace that shift back to a specific, agenda, a specific initiative within the company, or was it just the development of these NRO teams, or?
It's a combination of multiple things. And right, a lot of it was supply chain driven at the beginning, right? Because as you're doing things within the four walls that are really labor intensive and create inconsistencies, right? It's a challenge. Okay. So as you pull more and more of that out of the store and do it in large batch styles, that's a really important piece to creating the consistency. I'll give you one perfect example. We ended up spending money on Electrolux slacking machines, which means nothing to anybody. It's 20 grand per location to get your chicken ready for process, right? Okay. And it's consistent and it's executed perfectly every single time. Okay. So when you go through and you actually understand all the little nuances there that make the product execute every single time, that's the key in getting those types of scores. And I will say this, we don't do a great job on throughput in our drive-through. My first location was a drive-through. Okay. We're not fast. Don't come to
Right.
us if you want to get through the drive-through fast. Okay. I'm not a 1 minute ticket time like Taco Bell, right? At the window. I'm 2 minutes and 50 seconds. But what you will always get is the product freshly delivered, freshly cooked, specific to your order. And I think even if you compare that to the interior KDS times, right? Kitchen display systems, speed of service, we're at 8.5 minutes, which is not fast. And it's not intended to be fast. It's intended to be delicious every time.
But still, I mean, we're talking, this is a scratch kitchen. I mean, to your point, they're making everything to order. And I also, one of the arguments I think that came up from you as well was this isn't really a mobile meal, right? If you're getting a full meal, we're talking about a half pound of chicken.
You are.
Speak for yourself, Mark.
But maybe that's not something I could eat while I'm driving safely.
Yeah. True statement.
Yeah.
No, that's when you just you put on the podcast before you get in the line for the drive-through, and then you get your food, and you sit in the parking lot, and you just have a fat kid moment while you listen to something enjoyable. And when you feel good afterwards, you run inside, get cleaned up, and then you drive home, and then you have dinner.
Right. We still have to cater to those people that don't want to truly interact with other human beings. They just want to order into a box, get it from a window, and carry on with their day. And that's fair.
We embrace
requires
them.
balance. We embrace them. We
them.
embrace all types.
We embrace
Yes.
them.
We've got options for everybody. James, you mentioned with these ROA teams, they're traveling all over the world. So where else is Dave's? Where's the global takeover is happening? Where else are we opening restaurants?
Oh gosh, we've been in Canada for quite some time now. Right? I mean, the brand's only what I'm looking at the clock, 6 years old. But we've been in Canada for several years. We're in the Middle East. In several different countries, Dubai, Qatar, KSA. We're in UK. We actually just started in the UK less than a year ago. They've already opened up 3 locations, and their AUVs are literally double the US. They're extraordinary partners, Azuri Group. In fact, we've just expanded their territories to include 10 additional countries in the European Union. So we have several different international conversations going on right now, and I expect some additional announcements later this year.
Okay. We'll have to have you back on, and we can talk about those when they happen. And I know we just had a relatively large announcement for your group. I don't want to throw any numbers out there, but 1 billion is sort of popping into my brain here. There was a valuation that got floated. I know can you confirm or deny those numbers?
I cannot confirm or deny. I'll tell you what we did do. We selected the right partner, 100%. Okay. We are very excited to be part of the Rourke portfolio. They are tremendously intelligent people over there, and we've been able to immediately leverage some of their supply chain agreements that have just, literally have dropped. And we're not even talking tens of points. We're talking probably a full point to the bottom line. So it's just, we were very fortunate that they had that level of interest in us, and we've been able to partner with them. So we're looking forward to the future. So, which, by the way, I don't know if everybody realizes, I think they're the largest restaurant owner in the world. They have over 88,000 locations.
That's some good leverage to have behind you. That's a
little bit of buying power. A little bit.
Well, it helps.
So with that, I guess some would say the $1 billion question is what's next for you guys? What can we anticipate coming down the pipeline from you all?
Gosh, I think hopefully upholding the integrity of the brand. Mm-hmm. I mean, at the end of the day, we're not going to be this shiny new penny forever. In fact, we're coming to the other side of that, guys. I mean, we're very fortunate. We have a tremendous following. We have over 6 million followers on social media.
Wow.
Okay. Which is more than Chipotle, Okay, way more than Shake Shack. I mean, honestly, if you look at it, we're not Crumble. Crumble's got even more. They do an extraordinary job.
Because everybody just wants to break the cookie in slow
No,
motion.
they're waiting for their weekly updates. They do an extraordinary job of engagement. But I mean, if you really look at it, I would love to see us continuing to partner with international franchisees that like the ones we have, across the world. I'd love to see our domestic franchisees like myself continue to fill out their territories profitably, not just because they have, commitments within an ADA, right? Area Development Agreement. So, I think what you're going to see, especially over the next 2 years, is continuous growth at a pretty accelerated rate. And you know what? I'll tell you guys, it's if you look at all brands, there are very, very few brands that have been able to keep the integrity over multiple decades. And if I were to say the one thing I'm hoping for Dave's is that we're able to do that. So,
yeah, consistency and scalability. It's a fine line to walk, right? That's a tough thing to do well. But I mean, you guys are doing it, and the part of it, you can't really predict the future at this point, right? But based on where you're going to end up at the end of the year, and based on sort of the trajectory, any new initiative? I know you guys are working on like an after dark program. Is that something new you guys are doing right now? I feel like I saw something in the media about that.
Go for it, Scott.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of initiatives in the background going on. It's not forward facing out to the customer base yet. Dave's After Dark was a summertime, kind of launch to really push our extended hours. We're a great late night concept to come visit, whether it's a long night out with the friends or you're just sitting on your couch getting hungry. And we wanted to tap into that. And we see great success with that as well on our third party platforms and also our first party site to get those extended hours kind of filled. In the background, the team's constantly working on new menu innovation and ideas, really centralized around our core product. One of the biggest successes we've had a couple years ago was the launch of our cauliflower product, which which is still just an incredible product. In fact, it brings my family back to Dave's because my significant other, she loves the cauliflower over chicken. And so let's go to Dave's. So it really got that veto vote for a lot of people when we want chicken. And, now we can cater to all parties. That was huge. And you'll see on our menus now, mini sliders going for that shareable kind of craveable mini slider kind of approach and, top loader fries. So there's a lot of fun stuff that really kind of take us out of our core product, but also keep us centralized around what we do best, which is our chicken. And that's constantly an evolution in the background that we're working on. And in the next, 12 months, you guys will see more fun things hit the menu board without a doubt.
Awesome. Any secret menu hacks other than the honey that I should know about?
the honey's not a secret hack because I'm a honey guy. I'm a honey
Okay.
I think there are secret hacks out there. Right now, we're running. This is a weird one to me. We're running Burstin slushies, which have little boba balls in the slushies.
Okay.
And somebody figured out to put the boba balls on top of a spicy tender.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And I guess it took TikTok by storm a little bit. And apparently it's not that bad. I guess the sweet paired with the spicy works really well. I haven't tried it, but I thought it was a fun one to explore. So
boba style, let's go.
Boba style, there you go.
I can't say I'm for sure going to try that one this afternoon, but the honey, I'm down with definitely the honey.
Yeah, the honey is great. Honey with that Dave sauce is a good combo.
So we always like to sort of wrap these things up with a hot take. I think we're going to rebrand and call it a Reaper take for this call. Like, what's something in the industry you're loving, you're hating, a trend you want to see come back, go away?
Oh gosh, this is a good question. Loving and hating. Listen, we are very fortunate because we are in an industry that isn't easily replaceable. Okay. Mm-hmm. If you look at other industries, and I'm going to date myself here, but just because I'm old now, but if you look at what happened to retail with the advent of Amazon, okay, if you look at where money is being spent, okay, investment's still coming into the restaurant industry, and I'm very proud of that, and it's a beautiful thing. It's one of the few industries where you could actually open up a shop and people automatically come to you to try you out. So it's an extraordinary industry because what you're able to do is through great food, awesome service, and just a clean facility. It doesn't even have to be overbuilt, just clean. you can create loyal guests. Okay. And there aren't many industries like that. And so I'm very excited to see this industry grow, which, by the way, we're going to be in restaurants over 1.2 in 2025, 2026. Right. So it's just, and the last time I checked with my kids, they don't know how to cook. One of them does. One of them knows how to cook really well.
They know how to order.
So they know how to order.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's so many great things behind the inertia within the industry, behind the inertia amongst in chicken specifically as a protein, and Scott pointed out earlier, spice. So I just think that Dave's is extremely well positioned going forward.
Absolutely.
One trend I've seen, then not Dave specific, but I've seen throwbacks with some brands back to maybe I was younger in my childhood.
The 90s menu.
Yes, and now that I'm a dad and my kids are kind of they're little, and I'll see something either at a fast casual or a concept that kind of throws me back to that era, or even a cereal box that throws me back to that era. I'm attracted to it and I want to buy into it, and then I kind of shared that with my kids, and so I think that's happened over the last couple of years. Of kind of hitting that older generation now to kind of bring them back into it, and it works. It works for me at least. So I was at Taco Bell. There was a Maxi Melt, and I had to go buy it because I remember the Maxi Melt. I'm like, girls, you got to try this Maxi Melt, and it sold me.
I also remember when $3 got you like 8 things at Taco Bell.
It was beautiful.
But nostalgia is such a powerful motivator. It really is. That's a great call out.
And it's not just the idea of like passing down recipes. It's the idea of like you see these things at restaurants that you knew, and you're like, oh, you guys, like you said, girls, you have to try this. Like it's something that it made an impact on you in some way, shape, or form. You get to pass that along. It's that piece where food keeps everybody, connected generationally as well.
Yeah, I still see a Happy Meal in my house on occasion. So it makes me happy to see that it's still alive and living. Not necessarily healthy, but doing it, old school.
Absolutely. Well, James, Scott, thank you guys both so much for joining us today, for your partnership and your support throughout the Dave's journey. Most importantly, everybody, you at home can find a Dave's Hot Chicken near you. And if not, they probably are about to open one up, definitely on the way soon. In between visits, you can also check them out on social media. Join, those millions of people on Instagram, and you can connect with James and Scott on LinkedIn.
And of course, thank you for joining, for listening. We hope you have a great day, a great shift, a great quarter, a profitable Tuesday, wherever you are in your restaurant may be. Please don't forget, like and subscribe everywhere. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, basically anywhere you listen. And you can follow us across all the socials as well, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. And you can always visit us at restaurant365.com. James, Scott, this was awesome. Thank you guys. Appreciate you and the Dave's team. And we're excited to see what the future holds.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Can we go get lunch now?
Yes. Let's get some honey.
Let's do it.